class. So I actually have, there you go.
Okay, so I think we're good.
Okay.
Shall we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. All right, so thanks for coming to our first workshop of the semester, and also the first workshop ever to be held in person. So we have created this health data working group last year, at the beginning of last year, as a place where students, staff, postdocs at Dalla, Lana across all disciplines can come together to learn about anything related with data and data science, coding, and whatnot that is not typically taught in typical course, in a typical course. So we organize monthly workshops usually, and like for example, last year we had our workshops online, and we had workshops on ggplot2. And Larry actually had his first workshop in GitHub too, and then other workshops were on tidyverse in R and Bayesian meta-analysis and things like that. And we are going to continue that this year, so I'm glad you're all here. And we're also looking for more members to join us. So this is the current list of members. And yeah, we're looking for students who can join us, and we're looking for people from any division, and we want to actually have people from all divisions. So if we don't see your division on here, please consider joining us. And if you do see a division, still consider joining us. So the tasks will be to help organize the monthly workshops, and maybe we'll have an end of term event too. So things like that. It will be still minimal workload. We usually meet once a week, once a month to discuss the next month's workshop. So okay. And please feel free to send us an email at data.clsbh@gmail.com, or any one of us. If you go to our website and go to the team tab, you'll see our names, and I think our contact information will be in our respective websites and LinkedIn accounts. Okay, so today we're very fortunate to have Larry present to us about GitHub. Larry is a third-year PhD student in the Division of Biostatistics, and is also a GitHub campus expert from the University of Toronto. So he's the perfect person to be giving us this workshop today. So,
okay, thanks, Aya. Good to see people finally attending in person. Actually, maybe we can start with maybe just a show of hands. So, how many have used GitHub before? Just curious. Okay, you can also say more or less. Yeah, we're a smaller group today, so I can be more targeted with my questions. Right, and another question was who doesn't have a laptop, but I think my question is answered. I think it would be good because I do have some interactive things today planned. Another question is, so I think the workshop is scheduled to end at 2, so the second exercise will probably go over 2, which will be a little bit harder. Do you guys have to leave at 2, or? Yeah, yes, okay, so I'll try to have at least the first exercise done. But the second will be maybe as a reference, and it's for collaborative stuff, and you'll see what I mean. All right, so who we are, join us. Maybe we'll jump right in. So maybe some definitions as we always start. So what is Git? So yeah, the workshop is on Git and GitHub. So what is Git? So Git is a distributed version control system. So if you want to do version control in a repository or file, a folder, we'll start with folder, you'll have a .git subfolder in it. And what is GitHub? GitHub is a company. It's also a website. It's one of the biggest ones where you can use Git. The other ones being GitLab and some other bunch of things. But GitHub sent me a nice bag, so I guess we're going to be primarily talking about GitHub today. So hopefully you guys have an account created. That's not. If you don't, you can create one. And maybe a bit about the workshop outline. So we'll go into some what I think is basic, but it's actually not. There's always a steep learning curve, and so the first part would be just doing version control on your own, just how to upload your code and some of the basic commands. And part two would be on, and that's where the focus is, because I think when I presented it last year, I didn't do the collaborative part. And that's one of the strengths of using Git and GitHub, is so you can collaborate on the same code base with someone else, the teammate, lab member, collaborator. And part three is just sort of like some extra bits, right? So what else you can do with GitHub, open source stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. And for part 1 and 2, I do have an exercise planned out. So maybe for part 1, we can go over it. I think I think that's the fundamentals. And part 2, if we do have time at the end at 2 p.m. But my guess is that it'll probably go over, and we can use it as a reference for your own work later on. Right. Before jumping into the code and everything else, some slides. So as students, we get a student developer pack. So as part of that, you get some free tools, some IDEs where you can use the code. So for instance, our studio is free. I have this open on my laptop, but you get other things like Atom, Git Kraken, Git Desktop, other stuff. Some advertisement in that as well. But as a student, you get that for free. Another thing that's nice with GitHub is you can have GitHub pages. So for instance, I think as academics, you can have your own static website. I know Quan has one, I have one. So mine is at larryshamalama.github.io. So it's always your username.github.io, and you can host that for free. And those are only static websites, and you can show all your nice research and publications on it. But that's also for free, and it's hosted on GitHub. Right. Another minor thing, these slides are available. So if you go on our health data working group, the main page, if you go to workshops, and you see, and we have all our workshops. For the most recent one, there are the slides over here. So if you just try to look up on Google Health Data Working Group, you should find our slides if you want to follow along from your computer. Yeah, sorry, that was just an aside. Before once again going into more details about the part 1 is just making sure if you have Git installed. I forgot if it comes installed by default, but if it doesn't on Windows, so it's going to be a little bit different on Windows and on the Mac. So on Windows, you can open command prompt and type Git version. And if you get a response, then surely you have it installed. If not, you can install on this website, or I think I got this website from How to Install Git on Windows on Google. And on the Mac, I see a lot of you guys have a Mac, so that's my big that's me being opinionated. If you open the terminal, you can type git -- version. And if you don't have Git installed, you can use Homebrew. And if you don't have Homebrew, well, you can go to the Homebrew website, and it's a package manager. So I have these all just available in case you don't have Git. My guess is it comes by default installed, but I'm not too sure. And if you guys have already used Git before, then that means you have it on your computer. Now this is, but there will be exercises, so it'll be good to have Git available on the computer. Okay, a little bit about Bash, and this is where it could get a little bit daunting to begin with. So I'll be using these commands. There's an important part with, so if you want to do version control on your repository, you have to go to the repository and sort of sometimes I'll see what's in there. So PWD is to know what repository you're in. CD would be to change path if I want to go somewhere else, go to another folder, come outside, and LS would be just to see the files. So if I go on my laptop over here, so I have RStudio opened. And what's cool is our studio, so this is one thing I discovered recently. So you have the console, right? So, so just our stuff. But there is a terminal tab, which I think should be available in all RStudio whatnot. I think this is big enough, right? So for instance, if I can check which folder I'm in. So I have all my GitHub repositories in my documents in a folder called GitHub. And if I type ls, so CD, I went to that specific folder. if I want to print the directory, if I type ls, well, this is everything I have. So this is just an example of some of the quick bash commands I'll probably be using today. Yeah, but it's not something I want to dwell on too much. But there is maybe a slight comment on why I'm using terminal over some other IDs, which would be fine. I can also show how we can use it with RStudio. Are people comfortable with RStudio? Yeah, okay. So that's nice. So you can use Git on RStudio, right? So maybe just a quick example. Oh, this is a little bit small. So if you go to new projects, you will have, it takes a little bit, you can do version control and do Git stuff. So you can use RStudio. My preference is to use the terminal because I think you won't be limited to what these interfaces have to offer. Another thing is if you ever use the cloud, I think it's nice, but sometimes on the cloud, you only get like a command line terminal interface. So that's my personal opinion, but you can use other ways to use it. Get a desktop, get cracking RStudio. Probably RStudio will be a preferred way outside the terminal, but we can go into that later on. Right, so if you go into, you can log into GitHub, right? A prerequisite will be to have a GitHub account. So here's mine. And you will have, it's sort of I guess LinkedIn for code sort of. So you can have everything here. So I have my description, I have my favorite repositories, this is my activity, and you can showcase some of your open source work, stuff that what people want to see. So you have stuff that are private, but you also have your other openly accessible repositories. And it's sort of a way if you want to showcase to other people what you're doing. And I think it aligns well with research. If you want to show like code that's reproducible, we had a workshop last year on that. You can also host those kind of codes for research on GitHub. It's appealing for many ways. All right, so I think, right. So before jumping into the official startup part one, so what is a repository? I've been using this word. So that is just a folder on which you want to do version control, and you'll have the .git folder. And so the word I'll be using is repository a lot. And a thing I want to highlight is that these repositories can be local and remote. So when we start to create a project, we'll have our repository on GitHub, and it will not be available on our local machine unless we sort of clone it, right? So the word will be cloned. And any modifications we do on it, well, we do want to, we say push to the website, but unless we explicitly push it, they won't be available on GitHub. It's not like an in-sync Google Drive and whatnot. So you will have to see add, commit, and push, right? So, and I'll try to highlight this discrepancy between local and remote copies. Right, so do interrupt me if you guys have questions at any time. The crowd is small enough so you can just cut me off at any moment. Right, so my first repo or second or third, but in case it's your first. So how do you create a repository, a first repository? Well, you have to go on your GitHub webpage. And so after each part, I'll have an exercise laid out, and I'm sort of going through it, and I'll be doing it on my own computer. So how do you create a repository? So you do have to go on your GitHub webpage and click this new that I circled. And so back again to the local and remote. So once you've created it on the GitHub page, on the github.com webpage, you don't have it yet on your computer. So you do have to use clone, right? So all these commands will be sort of command line commands, but you can also do that in RStudio and by clicking, right? So you will have to do git clone, and you will have this carbon copy of your repository online, right? And then I'll be using this word a lot. These commits. What are commits? That's a very important word. And these commits are sort of snapshots of the state of your repository. So for instance, if I think this is a good example. So for instance, if I initialize my repository and I have a document with fruits.txt, so I'll make that first commit. That is a snapshot. If I make another, if I want to write another thing, add apples, then I'll have another commit which has a snapshot of add apples, and you can revisit the previous commit where you did not add apples yet and add oranges and etc. And another thing to mention is that every commit will have its unique identifier, right? Sort of where it's, I guess, not the most important thing for now, but later on, if you want to refer to another commit or whatnot, you can use these identifiers, right? So how do you commit your work? First thing to do is you have to, so there'll be another slide encapsulating this a little bit better, but you have to do add, then commit. So you have to git add and all the files, or you can add directories, everything else, git add dot, the dot just to symbolize everything that hasn't modified. You have to git add, then git commit. And when you're making a commit, you have to write a message. So the -m is to specify what message you want, and you have to put a non-empty message. And ideally, it's good practice to write something sort of descriptive, but you can write la 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 or something like that. But writing something just to summarize what the commit is, it's sort of good practice to have every commit to encapsulate a single change. But yeah, that's getting sort of ahead of ourselves. But formally git add and then git commit. So I'll go into to this example later on. So when you have git add and git commit, we'll use git status to see the status of our commits. It's a little bit abstract and it'll be more clear. And if I do git add git commit, will the files be available on the remote repository? That's sort of a rhetorical question. You can sort of guess, answer. The answer is not yet, right? So I think this will, if I had to, I think I found this on Twitter, and I think this is would be the most important image of today's talk would be, if you do want them to be made available on the remote repository, which is the ultimate goal, you do have to push. So add, commit, push. And add is like selecting, once again, selecting the files that you want to package. Commit is saying what package this is, right? You have to give the name, and then you do git push, right? So this is, I guess, the most important part. And I put some other probably terms I'll be using. So I talked about clone is to create a carbon copy of the remote repository that we will create. Pull is to pull any updates. I talked about push is to push any commits that you made on your local repository, and log is to view the history of commits. So for instance, back to the fruit example, you will be seeing the add fruits, add apples, and add oranges, right? So a lot of jargon here, but the most important would be the add, commit, push to do version control on your own, right? So I'll be getting to if you don't want to work with someone else, right? And this is a well, new, I guess, as of August 2021. So if you haven't pushed on your machine yet, so like you're on any new place where you want to do version control, we want to make sure you are the one pushing. So I'm no expert in cybersecurity, but you will have to create what we call a personal access token. So once I will do it on my computer, it will be, I mean, I already have my access token, but you will have to create one, and I can show you. It'll be under settings, developer settings, and personal access token. So if I go to GitHub, so this will be the first time you would push. Whoops. No, I don't want that. So if I go to, if I go here under settings, I think under developer settings, so you do have to scroll down. I don't know why they put it so down, but this is new stuff. And you go under personal access token. So you can see here are all my access token stuff that I use on the cloud and whatnot. And you can create a new token over here, right? So we can, I would just create tests, and you have to select that it's for your repository. And there's a bunch of other things we won't get into, so many other stuff along the lines of cybersecurity, and you get your personal access token. So this is top secrets, but it won't be very relevant because I'll delete it right away. But for your sake, this is how you would create an access token, right? Yeah, it is kind of new, so I'm not as familiar as well. And another thing is, maybe if you push, you might get this warning, just to say who you are. So you can just type these, you can just copy paste these commands and actually give your email and then your name. It's called a git config file. It's just your configurations for Git. But I don't want to highlight this too much. But you can just copy paste and give your details. Right. So this is the most important. Well, coming back to the packaging slide. So in summary, if there's really something I want you to take away from today's workshop, will be the remote and the local concept, right? You can have your repository remotely and your repository on your local machine, and add, commit, push. Right. So this would be the exercise one. Maybe I can pause if anyone has questions so far. Everything was crystal clear. That's great to see. So we can maybe just go over just creating a repository. So I'll do it on my own computer, and maybe you guys can have a try. And then just to show a sneak peek of what's coming up is how to work with branches, pull requests, and I wrote project management, but the main thing will be how to branch off from the main branch, which I didn't talk about yet. I didn't use the word branch yet. I know. So if we focus on my laptop, so just go over the sort of what I did, and if you have the slides, you can visit back to the stuff I was saying. So so if you go under repositories, as I circled, you can create a new one with new. So there are public and private. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. For the people who are watching by Zoom, this is where I apologize because I'm doing this on my laptop. Let's give it a name. So I guess I'll say health data working group, GitHub workshop, maybe 2022 GitHub workshop. Right. So it can be public and private. So some other things I can talk about here. You can create a description here. Yeah, that's as it says, it's optional. Public and private, right? So if you go on my github.com/LarryShamalama, you can see all the stuff I'm doing, but this is all the public stuff. But if I do take a second here, I have some private stuff, my Dear Diary, you know, some important stuff there, all my top secrets, my practicum stuff. So maybe ongoing projects or anything with sensitive data, you can put it as a private repository, but anything you guys can see is public. Right, so I'll use this as public. Oh, the name was removed. Workshop, right? So sort of another small comment is I think it's sort of commonplace to use the lowercase. I'm not using any uppercase. You can add a README, which I don't want to talk about. Let's not think about git ignore, and license is it's open source, so anyone can use it. And yeah, that's a whole other conversation that I don't want to get into. Right. So actually, I just created this, so you guys can access this on the URL github.com/LarryShamalama with the repository title. So it's available for everyone, but for now, I want to try to add a file to it. So right now it is effectively empty. So oops, too much. So I want to add it to a folder. You can add it anywhere, to your downloads folder or whatnot too. So I have a dedicated GitHub folder. So the first step would be to git clone, and I need to give the entire URL. So my health data working group and GitHub workshop. So I'm cloning, right? It says you have cloned an empty repository. Another step, I sort of implicit that I didn't see here. Well, I have to go into it. Yeah, so I can also open it using RStudio, open new project and open, but I'll be honest, I'm more familiar with using the command line. So I'll cd into it because I'm not yet into the folder, right? I'm using pwd just to show where I'm at now. So GitHub gave me a warning saying that I've cloned an empty repository, but is the folder empty? It's a trick question. Why? What's in there? Right. So if I type ls, I'm not getting anything. That's a very, very trick question. I need to show if I type ls-a, right? So remember, so any repository on which you want to do version control has a .git subfolder. So sort of like a comment aside, any files or folders that with a dot could be hidden from you. So even in the Finder, you won't see it, but it is there, and it has. If you go into it, it has everything that I'm not familiar with, but it's not empty per se. Okay, so enough about that. Step 3 is like make edits. So maybe let's create a file. What is a hello world in R? So maybe hello world or hello. Okay, the health data working group. I can save this as maybe test.r, and I have to save it in the right folder. So it'll be in my documents, GitHub over here. Right, so right now in my folder, maybe I'll bring this up a little bit. So if I type ls, what am I gonna see? I'm not gonna see the .git folder, but I have my test.r, so I do have my file available. right? So now what do I need to do to add it? So this coming back to the packaging slide that I had earlier, git add commit push, and that's the most important part, right? So git add, I will specify the file test.r. I can use tab to autocomplete. Git commit. So I want to give some sort of informative message. So I can write something like initial commit. It doesn't need to be extensive, right? So it can be something like this, right? So now it's going to say, so it's going to give like some other stuff that I'm not as familiar with, but it's going to say that we've effectively made the commit. And at this point, I want to highlight, and I think this is an important question: is this available on GitHub yet? Test.r, not yet, right? So the remote, yeah. So okay, good. That's an important part. Yeah, and we type git push, right? At this git push, if you haven't used Git on your computers, this is where you have to create the personal access token, and it works, right? I think that's it, right? Okay. Any questions so far? Crystal clear.
Can you, Larry, go to your GitHub account and show this?
Yes, it is all here. I have to just refresh the page. The test.r. Maybe I can create another commit because it's small. I can create another commit, and I can show how you can do this within the RStudio. So I'm a big fan of Terminal, but you can use this using RStudio. Maybe that's something maybe you guys are more comfortable with. So I'll write something like using RStudio. Smiley face or something. All right, so I have to save it. And oh, how do I do this again? You should be a git tab over here, I think.
You might need to close RStudio.
Oh, and I have to open the project, right? Oh, okay. Oh, I see all the hassle, so that's why we should open we should use a terminal. New project, is that it? Do I have to clone?
No. And then you take the clone part of it.
Oh, do I have to go into like another folder?
Yeah, but it can be like one.
Sure. Okay, so I have to clone it again, create project. Right. Okay. So I need to make my edit again. So if I save this, and so yeah, I was looking for this. So you would have to open it using new project. And if you go into you will have a Git tab. So you don't have this Git tab, I think it's not going to work. You need this Git tab on your RStudio. So that's how it works with this specific ID. So git add would be just clicking the check mark box, right? And you can commit it. And just like in the commands, you have to specify the message. So commit using RStudio. Commits, right? So you can ignore everything else. So I'm getting the same same comment from my terminal. And once again, I do have to push. And that's about it, right? We go back to GitHub. Right, so I have everything available using RStudio. So the command line is it's my preference, and I think the concepts are more clear. But you can definitely use RStudio. But this is me being opinionated. All right. Yeah. So is everything so far good with this? Do you guys want to try it on your own, or want to give it a shot? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm around if you run into any difficulties. Yeah. Yes. That's nice. Oh, should I? Right.
My desktop, like the desktop version sorry, GitHub desktop. Yeah, they have the account. GitHub desktop is just like another application. So you don't have to have GitHub desktop. They used to have GitHub stuff.
I don't think I have GitHub desktop on my laptop. Let me check. Oh, do I? Right, I do. Yeah, what are your preferences? So Quan you use GitHub desktop. And what about everyone else? RStudio mainly? Yeah, RStudio 2. Okay, hope I'm not overwhelming you with terminal stuff. Oh, fatal, right? That sounds familiar. Oh, do you want me to?
I think that's probably why.
Oh, right. So yeah, so under expiration, you never.
Oh.
They'll say, oh, maybe not. And maybe say different. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know, okay, so I tried to add, but then they said, not a good thing. Like, then you just can't do it. Set up like my div split.
Did you create it on your?
But I just create a request. I didn't put that in my notebook. My personal yeah, I have.
Maybe I made it look sweet, but you have to go into it.
Okay.
This is terminal stuff, so that's where.
Okay, yeah, you can go ahead. For that.
I don't know. Put it in.
Last one.
Yeah. So.
Now, we're gonna do
Yeah, can I go on to get one?
yeah. Have it stacked. I just made it.
Okay, great. So you have to go into CD in the terminal. So you have to go into it first. And now you have to create a file within this folder.
Oh, I have to create it within that
Right,
folder.
right. So that's the thing I'm doing is navigating folders.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know how to do that. 'Cause I don't
All right, so that we can create a new file.
So I like, yeah, okay.
So if you want to make an edit.
Yes, add hello world. Can I just do that?
Yeah, you can do anything, right?
Okay.
Now you have to save it.
Well, where do like, I don't even know where to find that.
So you copied it and you cloned it and you will finally. And there should be.
I don't know. Yeah, please. Do whatever you can.
Oh, yeah, it is one,
Oh, there. How do I like point it to where I wanted to go?
so where do you want it to go?
I like made up this new folder in the. I just called it git.add.
Oh, so you,
I don't.
it's okay, we can try this.
Okay.
So squiggly line means you're going to your home, which is your.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you. Okay.
the level for-
Yeah.
So you created this folder in one.
Under PhD. Like the first section. Yeah, I don't know how to navigate.
That's okay. That's okay. This is the term,
Okay, the terminal, I don't know how to use it.
so you can, then you can go into this folder.
I see, that's what you do, okay. This is the CD, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's what. But it can be like, I can point it to any folder that I create in here.
You can
right?
put-
It doesn't have to be.
It isn't, you can be anything.
Okay.
There's just a good thing.
Is it or if I see it, like, right, you know, on this, like,
So here you would do like, clone, and so where you want to.
I see, I'm like, it should work from there. And then I go get,
Not yet,
no,
have to go into it.
oh, okay, get it. How do I go?
It's okay. You- you have to go into it.
Oh, I have to go into it. Okay.
And now, so now if you save this untitled art in this folder, you can add to it.
I see. But wait, like, so here, you like, cloned it, like, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So that's, we have this folder
Yeah,
on,
yeah. Oh, I see. I see.
and so when you have it in your computer,
In the I just for
no, it's okay. You have to make sure you're in the right place where you want to add the file.
I see. So is this going into the place like that?
Now,
Oh, but if I were to navigate.
so,
Okay.
right, so you have your PhD, one folder of your PhD is here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now what folder is the folder.
I
So
see.
within this,
I see. Within the funny. And then.
exactly, if you make sure, you have to make sure to save it in the repository. And it's like a container, so if you save things outside of it, you can have it on your.
Oh, I
You
see.
have to go into the container.
I see. And this is, okay, so this is what's fine with the finger.
Right, exactly, the folder, exactly.
Yeah, oh, I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, no worries.
really helpful.
Well, maybe you can save this file in here.
Okay,
While you have this.
I will try that.
If you run into problems.
You know what I mean? Like I have it, if I copied it, but
Right.
like where do I fit it?
Oh, so did you make a modification? Well, not one.
So I was gonna. Sorry,
Okay.
but it like wanted. And I was gonna like.
It's always thoughts on.
Run with this. There's project, but I think it's because my son figured.
Did you create a new one?
Yeah, I have to do a more like this. Like, how do I update it?
Can,
Yeah, do whatever you want.
You're looking at seconds.
Yeah. So like first we use all this stuff about navigating the right place. And so yeah, so like I have this.
You might have to do
And then he said, actually going to to that folder.
I'm always here. You need it.
Wrong line.
Oh, type your- oh, this might be- Copy the,
Oh, and then I put in.
right, yeah, so it's not gonna, it's not gonna show.
Oh.
But you pasted it. You can enter, it's gonna say it's wrong. Yeah. Right. Oh, no, you gotta, no, it's okay, so you gotta do. Oh.
Oh, great.
Yeah. No.
And now, because we did that, I should have.
I think so.
Okay. Right, but I
All
think-
kind of being so you.
Correct.
Yeah, it's kind of important. Yeah, that's in your settings.
Is it on the whole computer?
It's on your whole computer.
Right.
Right, yeah, but that is, yeah, that's the bottom thing. But that being said, I don't know, I still don't know what to do, because sort of like ignored it, right? It's technically anything. You can give me a data every time.
So, but then it was like, then here's the now. It's actually, that means-
Right, so it works, but I still don't know what I'm doing. Right, but I think. Yeah, let me know. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. That's like-
Oh, yeah. Already. Oh, so I think you already called it. Already. Pardon me, I didn't say it.
So cool.
Oh. That could just have them, so you can just go into the CD.
Okay. So we're almost at 2, and there is a whole 30 slides after this. But we can sort of stop here now, and I'll try to make a quick comment about all of this. So, the second part is, okay, well, I'll try to summarize this in a minute. When you work together, so sometimes it can be complicated. If I add, so let's back to the fruit example. If I add oranges, someone wants to add bananas, but in my snapshot I don't have the bananas, and their snapshot they don't have the oranges. Then it gets confusing. So this is where all this concept comes in. That's the summary. That's the 30-second pitch. But what's more fundamental is this part, right? So that's why I'm like, it's if the second part is not as clear, I think that's all right. So really the add, commit, and push, because you can run into, I think we ran into some access token issues here. To know where, right? So back again to the repository, it's like a container. So if you need to make sure you're adding your files in the right place where you have the .git subfolder. So that's also very important. Otherwise, you won't be able to do version control on those files. So all of this relies on you being able to commit, push, and stuff like that. So this is the important part, right? So I can of course go over this, but we're 3 minutes before 2. So maybe it'd be important if anybody has questions about this part. Yes.
Can you use like, what is OneDrive like Dropbox?
Will it work with OneDrive? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a really good. I'll ask a question based off your question. So why not just use OneDrive or Dropbox? Like, why go through all this hassle if you can just back up and stuff like that? But so the answer is yes, you can use OneDrive and Dropbox for yourself. But with commits, you can also see the history and stuff like that. So I'm answering your
Commit from what, right?
yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I haven't tried yet, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I wouldn't see why not.
I keep all my projects in Dropbox. And then you just like, you the verbatim and go on.
Yeah.
Well, some, there's one, I don't know if the one that you. This is kind of method, some compatibility with, our file. So I have to end up opening and saving this new file. But it might be a one thing, but I do. I do have a question.
Right.
So this happened before, but I used the GitHub desktop as, I did a comment. Someone else in the team also did a comment, but I
Right.
didn't know the person did a comment, I didn't pull.
Yeah, you have to pull.
Collection. It's like there's a lot of differences, and so, and then.
I have
was
it,
like, okay, what to do? So, and then I have to save,
It's under conflicts, right? So you can have conflicts. That's what you have.
yeah, but, okay, so what I saved mine as a separate R script, and I pulled the other person's, and then I re-added my part, but then it seems a lot of work. I don't know
Right.
if there's a smarter way that can work.
Right. So the way to do this, or rather, so that works. So there's always a. I'll try to answer your question with an introduction. So maybe coming back to the intro to part 2 is, you'll see, I think there's a lot of ways to do something, and some of these ways can be sort of like hectic, and you will run into problems. So you're always welcome to write to me. I think that's a daunting part with Git is like, dude, all the resources are available online, but like knowing where to be pointed to, and yeah, so you can always just ask. So I have my email somewhere down the line here, larry.dong@mail.utoronto. I think that's also, yeah. So maybe this could be to end the workshop. But back to Quan's question. The specific slide, actually, no, I don't have a slide here. Is what you have is a merge conflict. That's when you work with someone else and the snapshots don't align, the commits don't align. You will have to pull, and then it will say there's a conflict, and you will have to manually resolve the conflict. So then you'll be saying, do you want to accept incoming change, or do you want to accept your current change, or you want to accept both changes? So you always given the option. But if you're making a difference on the same file, you will have to do this manually every time, because Git doesn't know if they want to accept your change or your collaborator's change or both. Yeah. So this will be, you have conflicts need to be resolved manually every time.
So then you have to have a communication within the team who is working on it, so you don't work on it simultaneously.
It happens to work simultaneously. Yeah, and that's okay. It happens. Yeah. So I can always talk about everything else. I'm very passionate about this, but I think, yeah, just write to me if anything, right? I think that's an important. That's the conclude the workshop, right? Yes.
Another question, so someone built our package to put it on GitHub, and I was interested to replicate parts of their thing and look at how they coded to do some sorts of calculation. What I found it difficult, I'm trying to do search by keywords. So when people build packages, they have many mini R files. Some are creating functions, some are reading data, running output results. So there could be like 20 something R files, but only one that contains the calculation I wanted. And I don't know how to search for the keyword, but search their entire thing.
So you're asking how to search for like a keyword.
Yes, but it's in the entire repo instead of going into the. Yeah.
So there's few ways to do this. So this is not as much as it. Yeah. So I'm opening Visual Studio Code. It's like R Studio, but for everything else. So this is just a repository. So for instance, if I want, so this is just outside of GitHub. It's like, let's say I want to look for a keyword. So there's ways on. I'm not familiar with R Studio, but you can do this using some other, what we call IDE. So this is VS Code, but on GitHub, you can do this. So if you type, let's say, I don't know, let's see here, I type test, right? So you can search for the user, which is like, I guess, me, but you can also search in this repository, but also all of GitHub. So I think if you want to do this using the GitHub website, you can do this using the search bar.
But what if I'm already at the let's say, let's go to survival.
Sorry, I'm just being aware, it is 2. If anybody have other commitments, well, we have the room booked until 2:30, so I will stay until 2:30.
Let's say I want to find,
Cox PH.
No.
I want to find Cox PH. What do you want to find?
class.
Right, so you can search in this repository. So you have it all here, but you have every match. So this is, maybe you're not interested in the comments, right? Maybe you're interested, and this is just like an argument. So does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Because maybe you're looking for the cluster. Is it a function?
Yes. Well,
Right.
it just constantly gives the best area.
Wait, how do you define it? Oh my goodness.
At one point, I was curious how they calculate.
So are you looking for this specific thing? Oh no, you don't have it. You have to use quotations, right?
Like a key cluster equals to 2. Oh,
What is this? Okay.
It's not the best. Anyway,
But yeah, but you can search for keywords on GitHub, right? So, but it might not give you what you want because there's a lot of matches here. Yeah. So I think I'm sort of answering.
This way you don't have to go open every single file.
Right. Right. Like if so for instance here, if I want to look where the normal distribution, well, that's in my project, so I can, there's ways to do like matching, yeah, this way. Okay, it is 2. I'm happy to stick around to talk about everything else, but I guess we can formally end the workshop just because maybe we have other commitments, but there's a lot more out there on GitHub. Yeah, so I didn't get to present, but the first part was I think the most important. So I guess we'll stop right here.
Just a photo of Larry. Should we take a photo of everything?
Oh, okay.
People are. Okay. Maybe. And also let us know what other topics we can do on things first. What can come up on our end of building a website.
Which slide should I have on for the photo?
That's why.
The best one. I don't know. Maybe where I stopped. Or anything else.
But then, what about you? I don't know where my hand.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Oh. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we have it. We have it at this. I'll take it over.
Something and then it was not. Part of the Castello. Oh, yeah, he's right here. Start talking. Work on the, you know,
I think
as part of the, that was.
I think it's exactly what it is. This was supposed to be the whole lot. We can go over it. Sure, again. It's all right. Last week, I went to the last time I thought it was
More on the.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I called this good number 2, so I feel bad not going over it. But I'll take it for the third.
Right. So,
Oh, yeah, do I have to, like, what you say, or do you have to go here?
and if you have one, we don't have, you'll be hearing her. But no, it's not.
I'll wait for you. Sorry. Oh, yeah. One over one. It is daunting.
Like I tried to, look at the exit to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think not so much about the. Yeah.
We're up there.
It's over by now. And that's such a. That I'm doing some bootstrap.
Yeah.
So, it was like not a just did a lot of looks and I said looks yeah, like the bootstrap not everything like the bootstrap. So I'm kind of I had to find a way to kind of summarize everything in the presentation, then that's gonna be the bootstrap. And then my game also once I have my life where I'm so bootstrap, then it's easy one becomes so you create I think the combination. They're not very popular. Every step like bootstrap the data set, and then then from the bootstrap so ideally you can have it expire in 30 days, but you will run it in 30 days. You're never expired. You have to.
Yeah, so, yeah, perfect, that will.
You have to-
There's multiple ways that could be faster, right?
you don't have to say it out. Once you- It'll always be, well, it,
But you
right,
could, if there is a possibility that you could bootstrap
not.
10,000, 1,000 copies that get rid of all. 1,000.
You can ask.
So you're not-
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's why you can say, look, you know, because you want to try and then you get the.
But you're not searching about. That's a lot.
Like too much about this. I just maybe I don't know how to work or I do it. There's like papers, maybe or something about this. So I think it's like. I think they have to do their good. Yeah, they're. But so everything like calculating out and you know, this kind of thing that. Right, you mind?
Yeah, he does.
But a regression, when comparing
Well, what's the difference by the bootstrap or the interpretation?
only need 10 to 20 cups.
Yeah.
Probably need the sound to learn them.
No, my first look right now is different.
Yeah, so think of that. You do sound and bootstrap, and then the limitation is that the sound times that is 20 bucks. So having the sound has 20.
Yeah, avoid also do especially in the avoid.
Do 20 interviews, do it with
Bye.
Bye, John. One go.
Oh, I see, yeah. It's easier because it